All right, Andy Kelley. If I could talk, let me start over. Andy Kelley, welcome to the show. How the heck are you, man?
I'm doing very well.
It's kind of early today, right?
It is a little bit early, but we're making it work.
Struggled to get up a little bit this morning.
Me too.
Yeah, I was like, my wife and I were enjoying, let's see, what were we doing last night? We watched Unsolved Mysteries on Netflix, and then that transitioned into rewatching a lot of the Dave Chappelle show. And so we stayed up way too late laughing too much. So
yeah, I hear you. We had family in town, so we were out at the fire pit, and I was like, I got to go home. I got to get downtown in the morning.
I know. I appreciate all the communications and let me know when you could do this. And I'm glad we were able to finally hook up.
For sure.
So, yeah. I know you are the Baker golf coach and basketball coach. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm assistant women's basketball coach.
That's awesome.
But the head men's and women's golf coach.
That's awesome. So you and I kind of go way back. So talk a little bit before, we'll talk about how you and I met, but then talk about how did you just get into the game of golf? I know your family is a golfing family, but talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So I grew up playing golf, but nothing competitive. I just kind of grew up with my brother and my dad playing, and my brother's 7 years older than I am. So he played competitively in high school and then a little bit in college. But I didn't really know anything about playing competitively until I was in high school. And it was my freshman year of high school, and we went to lunch with my uncle and aunt and some family members. Well, my uncle is Ed Colson, who was the assistant,
Yep.
you know Ed, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
assistant golf coach at Olathe Northwest. And it was the night before tryouts. And he was like, hey, you coming tomorrow? And I was like, probably not.
Yeah,
and he's like, no, you're coming to tryouts tomorrow. And so we show up. I mean, we're at Smiley's.
Yeah.
It's like 35 degrees. It's, March 1st or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And we had like 60 kids try out for the team. And Coach Grove still tells the story to this day that the only reason he kept me was because I was Ed's nephew. And he's like, I'm not cutting my assistant coach's nephew. And so I was the worst player on the team. And, but I could get up and down from anywhere. I still had junior.
Right.
I had U.S. kids clubs as a freshman year in high school. I didn't even have a real set of golf clubs yet.
Oh my gosh!
I hit my 4 on 150 yards. And
Nice. You still do that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm playing with seniors and juniors who are all-state players who are hitting their pitching wedge 150 yards.
Right.
I'm like, where am I? Like, I don't even know how to do this. But just being around it every single day, I got so much better. And then by the time I was a junior, I was a pretty good player. And then my senior year, I was a really good player and got an offer to go play at Baker, and the rest is kind of history from there.
That's kind of crazy. Do you know GM Golf Garrett Clark in Kansas City?
No.
He does trick shots. He's on YouTube, and he's really, really popular there.
Mm-hmm.
He has not as similar of a story to you, but he literally had never played golf. I think it was like he was 16 or something, or
Really?
12 or something like that. Somebody took him out to, I think it was Smiley's, and he had a hole-in-one on his first round.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah,
I wish.
Yeah, it's crazy. But that's awesome. But you also, so it's a crazy story of how you got into it, but you were around a lot of good golfers in your high school. Matt Green being one of them that played at K-State, right?
Yeah, so Matt was 2 years younger than I am, but we were playing with him when he was 12, right? He was around Falcon Ridge and playing with us all the time, and Wes Klein-Sorgen. We had a bunch of guys who were solid and who were college golfers, and then I played against some of the best players. I mean, Harry Higgs is my age, and so Harry and I competed in high school, and there were so many good golfers around the Kansas City area at that time. I look back at the state tournament from my senior year, and I finished 6th, and 8 of the top 10 in that event are professional golfers now. It's just crazy. It's like Harry and Travis Mays and a bunch of these guys who were studs now, and it's like, why am I in that group?
Well, hey, pat on your back then for
sure.
doing
And I blind squirrel on that day.
That's awesome, man. Where was State at? I don't remember.
That senior year was the private side of Alvamar.
Oh my gosh,
when it still existed.
It is gone now. Is it 100% gone? Right.
The front 9 is still there, and then the back 9 they redesigned, and there's like 3 or 4 holes. Then they go back to the other side. It's crazy out there. Now.
I have not been there since they've done all that redesign. I went out there when they had started it. I hadn't really seen it. I haven't seen anything of it.
I played there for the first time a few months ago, and you wouldn't even so when I was at Baker, not to jump way ahead in stories.
No. Yeah.
Alvamar was our home course. Yeah. The public side was when I was a student there. And I don't even recognize going through there now. They've put condos down the 10th fairway on both sides. There's gyms and pools, and KU's got a huge facility. And they've cut down a ton of trees. It doesn't even look recognizable to what it used to be.
Wow. I'll have to go out there because that was, you just talked about the KU kind of practice facility. That was, I think that was when I saw it was the start of that, because I remember the chipping or practice green that was on like the right-hand side of the driving range. That was new to me. That would have been, you could see it from like 11 and 12 and then 13.
As it kind of did that loop.
Yeah. And that was new to me, but that was probably, good God, that was probably 4 years ago, maybe.
So they've taken that whole section out. So 10, 11, 12 don't exist as holes anymore. And they've actually created like 6 or 7 mini holes for the KU golf team in its practice facility.
Holy cow.
And they've got different cuts of grass going up to green. I mean, they got all kinds of stuff so they can practice and prep for wherever they're going.
Right.
So they've completely eliminated that whole area. Yeah. And then I think where the old 13 and 14 are is when the golf course kind of comes back to that spot.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But it was a full redesign. Like I think there's like 1 and 2 are the only 2 holes on the public side that still exist in there. And I think 14 that still exists like in their old form. Everything else is redesigned. You start off on the old private side. They've redesigned holes there. You cross the street. It's cool. It was weird for me for a course that was our home course every single day. Yeah. And I played it in high school, right? Every year. Yeah. Lawrence High and Free State hosted out there. It was just crazy to see something change so drastically.
That's I can relate a little bit, because it's like not that it's the same, but like Meadowbrook was where we practiced a lot. Totally gone now. It's a park. But
I
the other
golf course.
Yeah.
Because that par 3, number 12 or whatever hole that was, that just ate me up in high school.
Yeah, there are. Yes, I totally agree. It wasn't my favorite course, but it was the first course I won my high school tournament at. So like there's a place for it in my heart, and it's just like it's kind of how you said in state. I caught fire. Yeah. It wasn't like the course was like I was like, yes, I can't wait to go play Meadowbrook, but. The other course that I think about what you're talking about is Loch Lloyd. Loch Lloyd, for me, the old course was just, I can picture almost every hole out there in my mind. And then since they've done the redesign, it's not like I don't like the redesign. Yeah. It's just not Loch Lloyd to me. Yeah. I go out there and I'm like, are we at Iron Horse? Is this Creekmore? Or, it's just different. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's hard to recognize it. So I feel like I can relate a little bit to what you're saying. I do have a serious question for you. Yeah. And we can get back to your golf career and stuff like that. What's up with the hair?
What's up with the hair?
Yeah.
So when I was, let's see.
This is by choice?
Yeah, it is by choice. Well, kind of. It's like a hybrid, right? When I was coaching basketball after I graduated, that's where I first started coaching at Baker, was assistant women's basketball coach. My first year there, the hair was running away a little bit, right in the front. And so it was going back. And I was trying to savor it. And I went to a buddy's house over the summer that next year. So it would have been the fifth summer of 2015. And we were sitting in it was like 2:00 in the morning. We'd been out all night, and he's like, "Hey, when are we shaving your head?" And I was like,
"What do you mean?
Right now."
Yeah, let's do it.
So I jumped in, and he literally took clippers, and I was like, "Go right down the middle, so there's no coming back," and gave me a little stripe, and we shaved it that night, and I've been bald ever since. So
that's awesome. I feel like it's almost maybe a Baker. If you're a coach at Baker, you have to do it, because my brother-in-law, Bobby Breon, that's what his same look.
Yep, and so. Tim Byers, the head coach for the cross-country team. Tim's bald too. Yeah, we have this little brotherhood of bald coaches down there.
We used to call this hilarious that you say that. Bobby and then a bunch of my friends have the bald look going, and we would make this joke that all bald men know each other.
Oh, we do.
Yes, and we called it. They had the Society of the Bald Book because of Facebook. And so my sister-in-law, Leslie Breon, Bobby's wife, would always be like, "Bobby, are you friends with that person on Bald Book?" I mean, it was relentless, and he was just, "Shut up, it's not funny."
Bald people, at least you always notice each other. Like if you walk down the street or walk in a store and you see a bald person, like you connect right away. You respect each other immediately.
That's hilarious. Do you ever? Sorry, I have hair, so this intrigues me, and I can't grow facial hair. Wow. So I find it very funny that you have facial hair, but you cannot have hair on your head. Do you ever sit there and think about that? I'm not trying to nitpick on you. I'm not picking on you. I hope this isn't offending you. I just think it's funny.
I grew a beard because I did No Shave November in college once just had a beard. And I was like, okay, I'll keep that. And then when I went bald, I'm like, well, I might as well keep growing the facial hair.
I like it. It looks good. I think it's a good look. I don't know why more people who, like, I have a couple friends who shave their head and they don't do it. And I'm like, no, I think the bald beard look is awesome.
I was never going to be the person with a little cul-de-sac and trying to save that. That was never going to be me. So the second we got close to the territory, I was like, let's just take it all. Let's just go.
I've offered to Bobby, my brother-in-law, I've been like, I will pay you $1,000 to let it just go and just see what he won't do it.
You can't do it. You can't.
It's hard. Yeah. I just, I mean, I can't relate, but I can. I feel like a little bit. But okay, go back to you. You played in high school, then you got to play at Baker.
Mm-hmm.
What was your career like at Baker?
Yeah, so we were pretty solid. When I got there, the golf team was we were one of the worst teams in the conference. There were only 7 teams in our conference, and I think our first conference tournament we went to, we finished 6th, and we were pretty bad. And I came. It was weird for me because I came from Olathe Northwest, which was a good program, right? We had we were always trying to be in the top 3 at state. Like, we had college golfers all around, and then I got to Baker, and it just wasn't the same. Mm-hmm. And so my sophomore year, we got a couple freshmen in, and I kind of got them under my wing a little bit, and they wanted to work and play and be good at this. And that was a focus of mine. Was like, this is the most important thing I'm doing. Besides going to school, obviously.
Right.
But,
no, that's okay. Yeah. I got a degree in turf.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So that's all I wanted to do. And so by the time I was a junior, we had enough guys that had come in that were solid, that had kind of followed that lead. And I had a transfer come in named Alex Zazelski, who was my age, because I was the only person on the team in my class at that point in time. Mm-hmm. And by that point in time, we got really good. And so we were both my junior and senior year, we were the best team in our conference. Wow. We fell short at the conference championship both years. Took second both times, which was disappointing. And then that's where my career and then now my kind of drive for coaching is like we kind of fell short a couple times as a player. Let's get back there now. That I'm a coach.
Now, you talked about the practice facility that KU has out at Albemarle. Where do you all practice at?
So we've bounced around a lot of places. So like I said, we were at Albemarle for a while, and then when they shut down to build the Jayhawk Club, we were shipped out essentially. We went to Eagle Bend for a little while, and that was just crowded. Now they're the only public golf course in Lawrence. They've got all the high schools in Lawrence. They've got Haskell. They've got Ottawa University. They had us. The KU women were out there a bunch, so it was just packed.
Oh, yeah. No place to practice.
No, and hard to get tee times at the right time because everybody's getting there at the same time. And so...
You hear that, public golf courses in Kansas City? Yeah.
And so we moved to Prairie Highlands last year. So this is... we're in the middle of year 2 at Prairie Highlands.
Nice.
They've just finished an awesome renovation. The golf course is getting back to where it used to be.
Ross Judy's going to come on the show.
Really?
Is
he?
Yeah.
Ross is awesome.
Yeah, I've known Ross for, I'm trying to think, since maybe when I was at Falcon Ridge the first time. Mm-hmm. So 05 or 06.
Yeah, so Ross has been great. And, we've bounced around in our just year and a half being there of who we've worked with, right? Like Steve Price has been a friend of mine for a long time. So Steve got us in, and then they've had temporary GMs, and they've bounced back and forth trying to get somebody in that spot.
Yeah.
So it's been a little bit chaotic for us, but Ross has been great at kind of jumping in and adapting on the fly with us and kind of learning how we work, and we're trying to, do our part to make that relationship work on our end. But we love being out there. And
what's the renovation like? That's what Ross is going to come on and talk about, but I've heard rumors, but I haven't been out there yet.
Well, so you've been to Prairie Highlands, like when it was great, and then it kind of of course kind of just they stopped taking care of it, and it didn't have a whole lot of direction out there from leadership or management.
They were blocking roads for some reason.
It was bad. I mean, it was the golf course. In our first year there, I think they only had 80 or 90 members out there, and they had kids running the shop, and we could basically just do whatever we wanted out there. We could pop on the golf course, but there was nobody playing it.
Right.
We were the only ones out there, and they tore out a ton of bunkers. They redid a couple of I know one of the greens that was struggling quite a bit. Just reshaped a lot of the golf course to make it look. It just looked overgrown from the previous years. But the bunkers were the main thing, and tore out bunkers, redesigned bunkers, reshaped them, got the fairways back. I mean, it's really. As good, every bit as good. Falcon Ridge is my home course. It's every bit as good as Falcon Ridge is now. Yeah. And I think it's more difficult. I've always thought Prairie Highlands is a more difficult setup. I think it's a harder golf course.
Tighter. I think it's tighter in my mind.
Tighter and smaller greens. And the wind blows more out there.
Yeah.
And so it's a good challenge for us. It gives us what Albemarle used to give us, which was a difficult golf course every single day. So when we go play some of these small town courses, we feel like this is easy.
Yeah. What do you think in the aspect of, I guess, so you transitioned into a coach, talk a little bit about what was that like? and then maybe, and I want to make this a longer discussion because I think there's some value in the aspect of you started late in life, you played well in high school, which allowed you to go to college and play golf, and then you transitioned into coach. Talk about that transition, but then I want to talk about like what would you tell any student now, maybe middle school or high school student, of what they could do to I'm not saying the ultimate goal is to become a golf coach like you did yourself, but I think there's a misunderstanding of what some kids have to do or athletes have to do as they're in high school to get to be recognized by colleges and not think that D1 is the ultimate goal all the time.
For sure.
So, yeah.
Yeah, you have to remind me a few of those if I get sidetracked.
I'm very long-winded in my questions, so yeah.
It's like 9 questions in one right there.
I'll bring it back, don't worry.
To get the starting coaching, I was very fortunate to get a spot with women's basketball. And so when I was in college, a couple of my friends and I, we would coach like 5th grade basketball teams in Baldwin City or in Wellsville just to have fun and coach kids. Yeah. It was just kind of what we did.
Give back, yeah.
Yeah, and like we dress up in suits on Saturday mornings, like 8 a.m. games, struggling from the evening before. And
where's the suit this morning?
I'm sorry, you're not that big time for me.
I'm not in 5th grade.
And so the kids loved it. The parents thought it was hilarious. We're out there in suits at a rec basketball game for 5th graders, and but it's what we did, and we had fun with it, and the kids had fun with it, and what we noticed was the kids liked being coached by people that were younger, not a parent, right? But like they look at these college kids and they thought we were cool. We really weren't, but they thought we were cool, right?
Well, think about the impact. Just for a second, I want to digress on that a little bit. Think about the impact you probably had of how serious it looked like. I'm not saying you weren't taking it, but the appearance of how serious you were taking it and what that probably impacted on some of those kids' lives.
Yeah, well, it was funny because like we didn't even know. We were kind of just like joking around doing it for us, but then like the paper in town wanted to write an article. Like people noticed it and they were like, "Oh, you're playing that team with the guys that wear suits." Like it became the thing because in Baldwin, it's like they play against Eudora, Wellsville, I think DeSoto maybe, and Baldwin. It's like a little 4-city triangular. Well, we'd go to other towns. Now the suit guys are coming. Like it became a thing, right?
Yeah, right.
And so that's kind of where I learned like that I liked coaching. I got really lucky to get a spot with the women's basketball team. And actually, when I jumped on with the women's basketball team, they were coming off of a conference championship season, really high-level program. And I pretty much just annoyed Coach Lister until he gave me a job. He really wanted a former player to take that position that I was taking. And so he waited and waited and waited. And I was like, dude, come on, like just give me the job. Like,
so you clearly did not play on the women's basketball team.
I did not play women's basketball.
Just making sure. Yeah.
And got that job and I tell all the GAs that come into whatever sport it is, you don't really know what you're getting into until you get into it. And you think it's going to be all, glory and sidelines and all these things. And really it's just a bunch of work and long days trying to prep and do all the behind the scenes work for any athletics team. Yeah. And so got to do that, was a part of, I did that for 3 years. And we won like 79 games. And I think we were 79-24 when I was there. We actually played for a national championship and the national championship game. Actually, in Independence was where we played at against Mid-America Nazarene. We played 2 teams that are 30 miles away, played in Independence for in a national championship, but got to be a part of a lot of success there. While I was doing that, whenever we were in the fall and spring, when my golf coach that I played for needed an extra driver, needed an extra hand or an extra set of eyes, I would go with the golf team and just kind of watch and be there. And I was still invested in the teams. My teammates were still playing, and I wanted them to succeed, right? And so at some point in time, I had to try and get a real job and make, actual money to survive. Yeah, it sucks. Real life came along. And so I took a job with Just Play Sports Solutions. They're actually still in Kansas City. It's a sports technology company that sells software to college basketball, football, lacrosse programs. It's like a mobile scout, or mobile playbook and scout and stuff.
Cool.
That it's digitizing all the binders of paperwork that coaches used to give. And that was fun.
We're in 2020. We're digitizing things.
Yeah. And so really innovative company. They were young guys. Actually, Austin Brewer, the founder, is a little younger than I am. I had a mutual connection to him, and it worked out that I was an NAI guy, so they kind of threw me into that role. And I loved being there. I just wasn't cut out for the everyday phone call sales stuff. That just wasn't. I've been coaching. It's what I wanted to do. I didn't have the drive to be as good at that job as I should have been. And so I was there for 9 months, and I got a phone call from my head coach at Baker, the coach that I played for, Coach Exxon, and she was like, "Hey, I'm retiring at the end of this school year. This is in November now of 2017. Hey, do you want to come back and take my job?"
Holy cow.
And so I was like, yeah. And so it was a pretty big leap of faith because the way to position myself in the best spot to get that job was to come back and be her assistant coach for the spring, unpaid. And so I left a full-time job in February and was an assistant coach for nothing from February through May, and then was hopefully going to be hired in July. And So my girlfriend at the time, who's not my wife, we were like, if there's ever a chance to do it, like now is the time to do it. And so jumped, luckily got the job and got into my role now. And so that's kind of how we got to this point. And from going to a basketball coach with only golf playing knowledge, it was really weird because coaching golf is so much different than any other sport. I can't game plan. I can't, shut down the opponent. I can't. There's nothing that I can do as a coach besides try and prep you.
Wear a suit and psychologically mess with the other team.
I could do that maybe, but and so it was just a different feel for me because everything we'd done with basketball to make us successful was I felt like we were the most prepared team on the floor every time. We scouted really well, and we prepped for our kids for what they were going to see, and our kids knew what was going to happen every single time. Now I'm a golf coach. And I tell recruits this all the time. I tell kids all the time. I'm like, it is terrifying that my job security is the golf scores of 18 to 22-year-olds. It's terrifying, right?
Right.
Because there's so much fluctuation, and so it's and I'm still learning how to properly, prep kids to by the time that it's showtime when we tee off, that they're comfortable, they're confident, and they're ready to go. It's just a very different dynamic from a coaching perspective.
Yeah, there's no play. There's no, there's no knowing that there's a 7-footer on the other side and go, I think in 7-footer, I mean in basketball, not a 7-foot putt. Yeah. Just clarifying for the listeners, because after I said it, I was like, wait a second. It seems like, though, there is some ability to take maybe what you could be doing in game planning for, let's just say basketball to stay within that realm, but then how do you transition? And that's not the question, but like there's got to be some level of being able to go out and scout the course as much, and maybe understanding. Now, I think the challenge for me that I'm trying to figure out is you have to do that. It's not just for the team. I mean, it's for each individual player.
Correct.
Of scouting it and getting them to understand where maybe they need to be positioning the shot, pin positions, where they need to be if the pin's on the left versus the right. Sure. Do you guys do that? Is that okay?
So everything's trial and error with me, right? Like, so I jumped in right away and started doing like PowerPoints with Google Earth of golf courses, right? So like, for instance, the first time our team went, we do a neutral site conference championship, and our men were at Portosima for 2 years in the Ozarks, right? Beautiful golf course, tough golf course. And so first time I go down there, I get on Google Earth and I'm showing these guys like, hey, this is cut out of a forest. They're narrow holes. And so we're actually showing tee boxes and the distances to the fattest part of the fairway. And then how much you have in from that point. And I tell the kids, I'm not telling you this is what you need to hit, but I'm giving you the option, to play to the widest part of the fairway, and here's what you're going to have left. And it might mean you're hitting a 4-iron off the tee, and you're going to have another 4-iron into the green.
To me, that what I would hear if I was a player there is I'm helping you think through everything. Like I'm not telling you not to hit driver here. I'm telling you. To me, what I heard again there was, if I'm swinging the best, if I'm so confident that day. And I know that the fairway's getting skinnier up there, but I'm hitting my driver perfect. I'm pull out driver. Yeah, but you as the coach are saying, hey, if you're not feeling 100%,
here's another option.
Hit a 4-iron or something like that.
And so we do that. But then going to your like per player thing, that's where I think, and I don't know a lot of how other golf coaches approach their everyday stuff, but that's where I think I'm unique in the fact that everything that I do, we are individual based. I talk with the kids one-on-one all the time. They take stats. We meet after every event that they play and talk through what worked, what didn't work. Let's go through the bad holes, go through the good holes. Let's figure out what's holding you back, and then I'm going to build your practice plan for the next few days individually for you, because your strength isn't my strength in golf. And so if you're the greatest putter of all time and I can't putt, there's no reason for the two of us to be, on the putting green for 2 hours apiece. You need more work in other areas.
Yeah. Talk about maybe the stats of how you're looking at those. Cause I'm actually reading like every shot counts right now. And I'm curious if that's where you go with it. Cause there's a big, standard stats that you can look at for golf versus like really getting down into the nitty gritty.
Yeah. And so we don't get super, analytical with like, strokes gained off tee. And we don't have the manpower or anything to decipher that. And the difference too is like it's different how I approach the girls than the boys on those two teams, right? Yeah. And so for the most part, it's about we try and meet right after the event. It's still fresh in your mind. And we talk about, just trends with, fairways, greens, putts, chips, sand. Is it short-sided? Is it wherever, all the things that are around the greens that are causing you errors? Because usually we can find trends, right? If you are 2 for 8 on up and downs in a day, and we, notice that 6 of your 8 up and downs you're short-sided, well, we need to the chipping's bad, but let's think further and let's stop hitting it there.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So
take an extra club, please.
And explaining kids like, hey, if a pin's tucked and you hit one and you go flagging it down, the shots that end up short-sided, whether they're just long or just short or just off the green on the short side, those shots look pretty good in the air for about 90% of the flight. Yeah. So now you've got a good shot that has put you in a bad spot.
Yep.
And now you're having a hard time get up and down. And sometimes it's a bad chip in a 2-putt or a bad chip in a 3-putt. And suddenly we've got a really good swing off of a good tee ball that we've turned into a bogey or double bogey, which should be no reason for, right? And so it's about trying to explain to them. It's trying to teach them what I've learned since I've been out of the competitive, or at least collegiate competitive golf, and trying to get them to understand that and to I talk about chasing the ball a lot, like not just scope it, hit it, chase it, scope it, and do all the routine, but think through things, right? Like let's talk through it. Let's at least have a process of, okay, where do I not want this ball to go? Yeah. And that's the biggest thing, trying to impart them. And so usually we can talk about that. We can notice trends. Every now and then you're going to have a bad hole. Kid's going to make a 7 because they hit a ball out of bounds or whatever and I'm not concerned about that. That's going to happen through the course of the round.
Yeah, I think there's a big problem in just golf in general of not thinking about where you don't want the ball to go. But then there's I think you hit a huge point in the average amateur golfer too, is the fact that you can hit a ball exactly how you want to, but you maybe made the wrong club selection. Yeah. But then you're mad at yourself for the wrong reasons, which then transitions into maybe some negative shots down the road or the next hole or something like that. I think that's amazing that you talk about that, because I can even, some of the leagues that I play in out at Sycamore Ridge and stuff like that, you see it all the time, is someone pulls a club and they hit the shot and you're like, why are you hitting this 9-iron when the pin is 4 feet or 4 yards onto the front edge of the green, and that your 9-iron carries 5 yards longer than what that is? Be short. That's an instance to me where I'm saying I don't want a 35, 45 foot putt back down the hill to the front of the green. I'd rather be maybe just shy of the green, a couple yards off or 1 yard off or something, chipping up a hill. The percentage of making that shot versus lagging a downhill putt are far greater. So
and playing to your strengths too, right? So for me, the best part of my game forever and to this day is putting. And so I'm different in the fact where I would rather just be on the green anywhere.
You're right. Yeah.
And this sounds crazy. I've never looked at a putt that I didn't think I can make this. Like 90 foot across the green. It's not going in, but I'm thinking it's going in, right? Yes. And so that's my style, but some kids aren't that way. So my best golfer on the girls' side is one of the best golfers in the country, and she is currently a very nervous putter. Right. And so for her, it's a very different approach. So it's about understanding your strengths, what you want in your golf game, and then playing to those shots. And I pull back always. It was like a year ago. There's 100 examples of this in professional golf, but there's somebody asked Justin Rose in an interview, how many perfect shots do you hit per round, right? Yeah. And he said 2 in terms of flight, exact compression, spin, height, direction. Everything I do is probably 2, and that's one of the best ball strikers on the planet, right? And so for him to say 2, but my golfers expect 10, it's just guys, it's not going to happen, right? And it's just not. Yeah. And so we have to start approaching. It's this weird balance of understanding where you want to miss without taking away the confidence and aggression to hit a good shot at the same time.
Well, I 100% agree with you. It's the expectation too. Yeah. I'm not saying, it sounds so negative to say lower your expectations, but it's true. Yeah. Professional baseball players, I relate this to how they go to the plate, their batting average. Yeah. They're 300 to 400, it's 30 or 40% of the time they're actually getting on base or getting a hit. That's not a lot. No. And then you think about, in Justin Rose's case, we could do that percentage. What is he? Maybe shoot 72 strokes around. We're talking about 2.7% of the time he's hitting a great shot. Yes. So the average golfer should probably be 0.1%.
Maybe one time around.
Not even, you know. I'm thinking maybe the college golfers at Baker or anywhere across maybe they're 1%. But for professional golfers who are getting paid to play this game, who are the upper echelon in the above the 1%ers of this world, is crazy to think that less than 3% of the time they're hitting a good shot per round.
Yeah.
That's mind-boggling.
And that's why it's about, and golf's always been about managing your mishits. I mean, everybody goes out there and you hit a great drive that you felt like was off the toe or the heel, but somebody else watched, like, oh man, that's a great shot. And you're like, well,
no,
actually,
it was horrible.
Didn't hit it great, right? But technology and everything we do now, it goes far enough and it does what it's supposed to do, but it doesn't mean I hit that one perfect by any stretch. And that's like where the kids have to get to, and understanding that aspect of the game, because it's really, we can go into a long conversation about rangefinders because of all the things that they bring, but I think rangefinders play into that because it's really easy to just scope it. And 141, that's pitching wedge, grab it, hit. And it takes the entire thought process out. I ask kids all the time, I'm like, hey, have you guys watched professional golf? Well, duh. Okay, well, do you watch when they zoom in on the caddy and the player interacting for a shot? And they're going through, it's 132 to cover the bunker. It's 5 paces on from there is the flag, 6 paces behind that. You got to, all these factors. And we're never going to get that in depth in the college game because we don't have caddies. We don't. You got one of me, and I might have 10 kids on the golf course at a time. And so, and I don't want you to necessarily be that in depth, but there is more of a process. Let's find the middle between that and rangefinder 142 flag. Let's go.
Yeah, because you can go. You could have a player go too far, where they're thinking so much about every aspect, but they're forgetting how to swing.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's the same thing with putting. I think you don't struggle with this, but where you get line locked or you forget about the speed or something like that, and that's what you're kind of saying is like if they get so ingrained with every aspect of every shot, they might not remember how to actually execute the actual shot.
So it's about our version of that is just figure out exactly. Let's think about where the pin's at, and if I don't hit this thing perfect, where do I want the ball to be?
Narrow it down.
And I want 20 feet away from the flag in the middle of the green, or 30 feet away from the flag in the middle of the green.
How much are you talking to I got 2 questions. How much are you talking about the green as it relates to them as they're hitting that shot? Like, do they know where they want to hit it, the flattest part of the green, where they might have an uphill putt versus a downhill
Depends
putt?
on the player. Okay. But for the most part, with our girls, quite frankly, the direct correlation from rounds that we can play and that are good is greens in regulation. Like it's just, we have a lot of girls who will hit 3 greens in regulation in a round.
Right.
Now they might be good around the greens and can scrap around enough up and downs to keep a round salvageable for what we use. But for them, it's about just getting the ball on the green. And then we can figure out, because then you're eliminating the biggest numbers, right? Then we're worst case bogey moving forward. My dad used to use the analogy all the time. If you hit 18 greens in a round, what's the worst you would shoot?
Right.
Well, for me, it's like 4 under, right? And that'd be a pretty poor putting day, right?
Right. Yeah.
But for some of these kids, I tell all the time, it's like, and it's not that simple, but it is that simple, right?
Yeah.
If you just took the flag out and hit one
center of the green
every single time, you would be an even par golfer. Most people would, right? Because you're going to make a few, you're going to be close to a few. You might be 60 feet from one of those every now and then.
3 putt, but still, that's a bogey.
You're going to make a couple birdies in there probably, and you'll be around even par every single time. Now it's not that easy because that's tee placement's got to be right. You can't be behind a tree or can't be in the bad lie in the rough or whatever factors come into the round. But there is some truth to that and some strategy to that of like, hey, what if I just tried to find the surface every single time?
Yeah.
And then once you're good enough at that, then we start advancing it into, okay, well now let's pick the spot. Now let's understand that let's stay below the hole. Let's be a little bit shorter of the yardage, or let's get left of it 'cause it's flatter. And those things come with time. But we start with just like, hey, let's get the thing on the green, right?
Yeah.
Let's give you a birdie look and make it easy because it's just one thing I talk about all the time because this is how I played. I was not good at hitting greens when I was young. Like I was 6 greens around 73 because I'd have 24 putts in a round, 26 putts in a round. It was dumb, and it's hard to get kids to understand or to get to that level, right? To try and take advantage of the opportunities when they get them, and that's where I'm trying to get my kids to is like, hey, it's stressful, right? Like when you play that style of golf and you have to get up and down 4, 5, 6 times in a row. It takes a toll on you. Whereas the guy that keeps hitting the green and 2-putting, he's not really worried. He's lagging one down there, tapping in for par, move on to the next.
He's ready to play another 18.
Well, I'm like, God, I got to stop making 10-footers for par, right? It's just like, this is killing me.
Yeah.
And so mentally, it takes a toll on you when you play that stressful round as well.
Right. Yeah, totally. And I think that's where, you probably wear a ton of hats as a golf coach. Talk a little bit about, I feel like we are talking about, but maybe more specifically about the mental approach that because I'm sure you have to talk to them about, keep an even emotional state, or, if you get really low, how do you get back to being even keel and stuff like that?
Well, it's really interesting. Again, it's individual based, because I've got players who are emotional, their highs and lows are crazy out there.
Yeah.
And, I got some, and it's a maturity thing. We got kids that are growing. I got a sophomore now who's a really good player for us, who last year, 2 bad swings into a round, he was so angry mentally that he couldn't even come back from that. And it was like, relax.
Yeah.
Like chill, you're fine. It's 2 bad swings.
Yeah.
And so, you've got that end of the spectrum, and then you got some kids that I need to ramp up and hey, I need you to try a little harder.
Are you awake?
Yeah. Can you show up for me, please? Right. And so it's really individual based in that regard, but just trying to figure out what the proper balance is for those kids individually is the most important thing, because like some of those kids, they want that scouting report because they want something to focus on, shot to shot to shot, as opposed to keep them away from thinking about the round as a whole. Right. Then to add the stroke, we talk, every coach and everybody that is a good golfer, every coach I've ever been around in golf talks about, you can't add your strokes up, you can't start counting it, because then you get to the round. And Coach Exxon, I talked to this about a couple of our players. We got a girl right now, our second best girl. We have a really young team, but they're both technically still freshmen. And she is one of those players who will have it going for 14 holes, and just fall apart at the end.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Coach Exxon, the coach that retired, that was my coach, telling her about this girl, and she's like, well, the difference is she goes from being the hunter to being the hunted. And so all round long, I want pars, I want birdies, I'm aggressive. And then there's a moment towards the end of the round where she recognizes, hey, I'm only 2 over through 14. If I just par out here, I'm good. And so as soon as you get to that mentality, well, now you're playing defensive, you're not playing aggressive, you're not playing free. One bad shot, you get tight, you get tense. Another bad shot, make a double. Oh God, now and then it just spirals, and that's how you end double, triple, and turn a 74 into an 83. And so there's not, if somebody has the answer to how to fix all that, please come take my job from me.
I think it's a really good way of looking at it, though. I hadn't really thought about the from hunting to hunter, or being hunted. I mean, that's a really good, because I think that's spot on. Of you're out of the gate, you're going, okay, you're optimistic. We're gonna get this round, and then all of a sudden, you do. You've had this. Every golfer I feel like has experienced that. It's like, oh, well, I'm even, and I've got 4 holes left. Let's see what I can do.
So I'll use an analogy that's gonna make me sound like a lot better golfer than I really am. But my dad and I play in our men's league at Falcon Ridge, and so just this last week, we had our final match, and it was the 3rd place match to finish the year-long men's league. And it's handicapped, and we're in the low handicap flight, and we're playing against the team in the bottom handicap flight. So I'm giving up 16 and 17 strokes over 18 holes, right? But we're playing the white tees at Falcon Ridge, and I hit it decently far, so it's usually okay for me. But for me, as a golf coach who has everything figured out, right? And at least they think I do. I open up and I birdie 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Sounds
par
awful.
5 and birdie 6. So I'm 5 under through 6 holes, which is just dumb. And the guys were playing who is this guy? This guy's the best golfer I've ever seen in my life. And in my head, I'm starting to think
all right,
okay,
10 under.
If I can just get 10, 12, and let's try and get 59 today. I'm all these things, and I made 7 pars in a row, right? And it sounds. But it's the par 4 is 350 yards, right, from the white tee. So it's I should be making more birdies, but it's just even I'm adding up in a good way. That's in a good way, but I'm adding up well, if I just do this and I can birdie this hole because I got a par 5, and it's just stop. Hit the next tee shot. Straight. Hit the next one on the green and make the putt. That's the process you have to do. But it's so easy on both ends. When I was in college, for some reason, college golfers, average college golfers, 79 is the magic number. 79 is not a good round, but it's not that bad.
It's not 80.
80 is the worst ever, right? And for some girls, it's 89, right? That's okay, I was in the 80s at least today. And it's 1 stroke. And so the problem is you get into a round of golf in college where you're struggling and you're not playing well, and you make the turn at 40, make a couple of bogeys, you get to 7 over with 6 holes to go, and then it becomes, let's just par in. Let's find a way. Well, what if you hole out for eagle? What if you make 2 birdies in a row? Why are we limiting ourselves to par? Because now your expectations down. Now you're going to get frustrated when you don't make a par. All those things that fluctuate. Like, it's the hardest sport mentally ever, and you're on an island.
Well, the target is always changing. To me, it's specific. Like, you made a point of where you talked about how you might have 24 or 23 putts in a round. Well, what happens when you start hitting more greens? When you go from 6 greens to hitting, till your putts go up.
Absolutely.
Then then you have to figure out. Then you're like, okay, wait a second. Now I have to start working on putting more. For you said 10 feet. I'm making 10-foot putts for par. Okay, well, you're good from 10 feet. Well, what happens when you have a 35-foot putt? It's like, crap, I still hit it to 10 feet. Well, you're good, but at the same time, the other golfers might not be like that. And I think that's the challenge is. And I was talking or thinking about this is with that every count shot or every shot counts. Sorry, I was reading that and it was so funny to see some of the aspects of in there of talking about how most golfers have no clue what they really should be working on.
Yeah,
they might be like you were fortunate enough to know that you were a great putter, so you didn't go and spend a lot of time putting. You might go, I need to hit more greens. Maybe you didn't, hit a lot more greens. It sounded like you still didn't hit a lot of greens, but you knew what you needed to work on. But there's something, to me, what is your thought on advancing the ball as far as you possibly can every time you can? I'm a big proponent of it. I believe that is the best thing to do is get up there, hit the ball as freaking far as you can, and then make birdie or par.
Yeah, and so it's like selective for me. So like the example for me is number 1 at Falcon Ridge. When the pin is in the back of that green, I actually like to lay back a little bit more. Yeah. And I like to have more of a full shot or one that I can kind of run into it. Whereas when the pin's on the front of that green, I want to be as close as I possibly can. Right. Because I want to be able to chip one. I want the 30, 40-yard shot that I can get tight. So like I'm almost opposite of what some people would be. Like a front green pin, I want to be able to hit a full one. Yeah. So it's selective for me, and it's selective on the hole too. Like, for me, usually, I'm confident enough around greens that I go for every green and 2 that I can, because I don't care if I'm in a bunker or if I'm on a downhill. I don't really care. Yeah. I feel like I can make birdie or get up in there from anywhere. In worst case scenario, I'll make par. Right. Like, I'll still get it on the green, I'll 2-putt, and I'll get out of there with a par. But everything, again, for me, like, that's my approach to it. But kids are different, and every kid's got their own confidence. Like, I got a few kids who are really good ball strikers, really good around the greens, but the driver is the worst club in their bat. Yeah. And so for those kids, it's not always about just rip it as far as you can and figure it out, because
they can't.
It's going to be, it could be out of bounds on either side, and it's both ways, right? Right. And so, again, like, if you can get to a point with your driver where you're confident enough that no matter that your mishits are going to be in play and going to be fine, then absolutely. Yeah. Bryson DeChambeau, as far as you can, doesn't matter if it's in a tree or in a foot tall rough. I'm hitting a 9-iron, you're hitting a hybrid. Yeah. I'm better than you are. Absolutely. In that
the likelihood of being close to the hole is greater.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think, again, it boils down to, player to player, how their individual golf games work.
Talk about a little bit of I think I'm right in saying this. The season was canceled this year, right?
So we're playing this year now. So we just finished our season. Yeah.
But at the beginning of the year, was it canceled?
We lost the spring.
Okay, the spring was canceled. Mm-hmm. Okay, so talk a little bit. Are you trying to raise funds for some of the team right now? Talk a little bit about that.
So we play fall and spring in college. So spring is the one that counts. Spring is the conference championship, the national championship. Okay, got it. The fall isn't a preseason, but it's it all counts towards the same rankings and processes, but it doesn't. You play the fall events and then you break for winter and you come back in the spring and do it for real, essentially. Right. And so, to have that stripped for us in the spring was crazy, especially for seniors, right? Kids that have, and for me last year, we had a team that had 3 seniors, 1 girl and 2 boys, and all 3 of them were really like coming into their best parts of their career. They were working hard.
It's gonna be tough.
They were motivated. We had a great off season. They were really driving our off season stuff, hitting in the simulator and doing all those things to prep the team. Whereas in the past, we've just kind of put our clubs away for a couple months and tried to figure it out again. And they were really good at driving that. And so for them to not get to see it sucked, right? But we moved on. And so we get into this fall and we got a good team. But, everything that COVID's done to the school with in terms of our what we need, our new regulations to stay safe. We got to spread out further. We can't sit in vans. So now I'm taking tour buses to events, right, where we can space out. And obviously that's a little bit more expensive than a van. So, we're fortunate enough at our school that we're still being supported financially as we've always been from a program, but our costs have gone up. Yeah. And to offset that, I've stopped traveling as far. We've tried to go back and forth and not stay the night, A, for exposure reasons, but B, for cost reasons too, hotel bills, things like that. We still have to in a few cases. So we actually are in the middle of our biggest fundraiser, which is just an online like Facebook e-team sponsor thing. It goes out to all the kids' families and parents and aunts and uncles and everybody that loves them, and they can send $20, $5, $100, nice. Whatever. And so that money always, last year we raised a bunch of money. And it was to put a simulator in on campus and put an indoor. We have an indoor facility. It's like an old racquetball court. It's got 2 nets in it. It's got a big T-line mat. But we got a TV and a simulator and put like a sound system in this. They can listen to music and a little putting tool.
That's awesome.
And so that was the big thing. And then also, getting enough money to get the kids just gear, shirts and stuff, because like that's another part of small college athletics. Like all that stuff is fundraised. And so but for me, that's part of playing a sport in college, right? You want the stuff, you want the jackets and you give a kid a t-shirt and it's like, you have a basketball game on campus, right? It's like, hey, come to the game, and 10 kids come. Hey, it's free t-shirt night, and the whole campus comes, right? It's it's a t-shirt, but everybody wants stuff. And so for us to be able to do, get the kids golf balls, and because now our rosters are bigger than they've ever been before. So get the kids golf balls, get the kids gear, get the kids shirts, and everything that I want them to have so they have a positive experience, whether or not they're successful on the course, at least they're getting things. Like that's what we fundraise for, and that's what we're in the middle of right now.
And so anyone can contribute to that, right? Like they don't have to be an aunt and uncle or a family member.
No, it's on my Facebook. It's all over. And so we pop that out, and that's been we've actually raised a little over $7,000 in like a week, which is huge for us.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's been. We've had a couple like $500. We've had huge donations from people. I tagged every alum from Baker Golf that I knew that on Facebook, and I was like, hey guys, it's time. Yeah. And so and we're actually still saving. For the university itself is building a huge athletic facility, indoor facility, and we're going to have our own permanent home that'll be like turfed in with a putting green for the floor, and maybe a couple simulating bays. So that's coming in the next few years. So while I'm always looking to give the kids stuff now, we're still saving towards when that moment comes, having the money to be able to put in to that facility what we need, because where we're at in the weather that we have in the off seasons that we have to have it. We didn't have one until last year, and every school in the area that we compete against has a simulator inside. You have to, because nobody just wants to go hit balls into a net. You don't know where it's going. You feel, okay, I pured it. Well, I've pured a lot of shots that I hooked into the pond, right? Like
me too.
So like, I pured it, I hit it great. Then you get on the golf course and it's both directions, right? At least having the ability to, and just having the simulator in there, kids want to go in there all of a sudden now. They want to see it. They want to do all the things. So it
opens up a whole new possibility of them understanding what their game is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, spin rates.
Gets them into, they can see club path. They can see the lie, all the things that come with that information, and it just wants them. They just get excited to go in there and hit, and that's the first step for me, was like touch your clubs like once a week, twice a week, like just stay with it. Because when we come back in the spring, we could have snow. We could be sidelined for 3 weeks and then have to just show up and play a conference championship. It happens. So,
and then that 80 comes into possibility instead of 79. Yeah,
exactly.
That's hilarious. So okay, let's transition Masters predictions. It's Masters week. Boy. What do you think?
So I'm a big Ricky Fowler homer.
Me too.
He's my guy, but he's been going through, trying to go back to his old golf swing now. And so he claims he's one more week and I'll be good. And so I don't know. His putter will always keep him in it if he can keep it in play. And so, I'm interested to see how he goes. I'm really interested to see how Bryson looks out there. Me too. I think everybody is. Is Augusta a course that you can do what he does? I don't know. Yeah. I heard they put a giant tree in like the woods on 13 to try and prevent from him going. Like they put something in there that's supposed to like literally just so Bryson wouldn't take a bigger cut than like Bubba and some of those guys have taken in the past.
Yeah, I saw some graphic that showed he was going to go over to 14 green. Or I'm sorry, 14 fairway. So
just through everything, and then play it back.
Yeah.
But it's going to be interesting to see, like, is that, because that's kind of like the old standard, right? Like, is that course need to be altered for him, or is it stand enough on its own?
I don't think it does. Personally, my take on it, I don't think what he's doing is comparable or the same as what Tiger did. I think Tiger, and I'm not discrediting Tiger, but there was obviously technology advancements at the same time as Tiger was coming up. Were people swinging as hard as him? No. Yeah. I mean, John Daly too. I mean, those guys, they found how to, that distance equaled lower scores back then. We don't have as much data, or we didn't have as much data then as we do now that, Bryson took and said, there's got to be another way to take this to the next level. And I think that's what he's doing, is he's just looking at it from a pure standpoint of, if I can hit the ball as far as I possibly can, I have a greater chance of making birdie. He doesn't do it all the time. Yeah. I mean, and that's the point of what you're saying of the kids who their worst club in their bag is their driver, is like he's has higher risk, but he has greater return at the same time, potentially, but it's not. And I think it will be interesting for me. I'm picking Bryson. Bryson is who I think will win it. I feel like that's very, stereotypical of me to just be like, oh, jump on the Bryson bandwagon here. But I think it's going to be interesting to see what he does. I think, can he get down to, 10, teeing off and getting as far down as he possibly can on 10. I think there's a couple other holes that, I think the tricky ones, he's still going to have the challenges of, the par threes they're really, really hard out there. And it doesn't mean, 18 out there. When you watch that on TV, I'm like, how freaking
it's a
close.
Bowling alley.
Yes. I'm like, how close are those trees?
That's the one shot that I always watch on TV, and I'm like, I don't know if I could hit that shot. Like, especially with the nerves coming down late in the week. But I won't be surprised to see. People ask me all the time, how many more majors can Tiger win? Yeah. And I say I think he can get 5 more, because I think he'll be in the mix at the Masters. I think he'll be capable of being in the mix at the Masters for the next 15 years, right? Yeah. Fred Couples is still in the mix every now and then at the Masters. So I think Tiger's capable of winning that any week where he gets hot. I think the tournaments that he can win are dwindling. I don't think he'll win a U.S. Open. I don't think he'll necessarily win a British unless he gets great weather, of course, that he loves. But he'll be in the mix at Augusta. So I want to see how he does. But then I won't be surprised if you get like an Adam Scott or a former champ, a Bubba, who is way in the mix late in this one too. I really want to see what the course looks like in November, and if it plays differently, and if there's any added challenges, and we get to see Augusta for 2 consecutive majors, which is kind of cool.
I know, yeah.
So we get it twice in like 5 months.
I know, it's great. That's what I was telling somebody. I was like, man, and then it's like 5 months away again. That's crazy. So, and there's no fans,
which would be really weird.
Yeah, I think it'll be good though. I mean, not good, but I think it will be weird. But we were talking about this. I had Sinlon on yesterday, and we were talking about the fact that it's just like the artificial noise that is being piped in for like the NFL games and stuff like that. You don't really notice it, except when, for me at least, you only notice it when you see that big wide shot and there's no fans in the stand, and then you like hear the roar of nothing when like there's this huge play, like an interception. It's just like,
or like when there's nothing going on and there's like a random roar that pops down. It's like,
I was like, what the heck?
That's definitely fake.
I think it's got to be challenged. I don't think that they'll be piping any sort of noise in. No. It's kind of funny. We haven't heard the Masters song in forever. Like typically you start hearing it. It's going to be interesting. It might not stop from November to April now, because typically we see it in like January. It's like, oh, the Masters coming in April, and you're like, so.
I know.
Be cool. I'm trying to think. I don't know if I have any more questions, man. You have crushed it. You're really good on this podcast, by the way. Thanks. You might need to come on again soon.
Whenever you need me.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, thank you very much for coming, and
thanks for having me.
Appreciate your time, man.
It was fun.